Microsegmentation in NSX Fabric is basically done with the help of distributed logical firewall, right? So when you create a policy in a distributed logical firewall, the policy is always applied to the VNIC level of a VM, right? So VM will have, let's say, this S1 server has a VNIC, which is in blue color here. So the policy will be basically applied on that VNIC level, right? So if you have two VNIC, then probably you can apply two different policy on that, right? So that is how the NSX policies works, and the objective of this lab is to basically disable the communication from S1 to S2. So we will just initiate a continuous ping from S1 to S2, and when we apply the policies, that will be basically applied on the VNIC level of the servers, and the ping should stop working, right, once we apply the policies. So if you see the current status, I'm able to ping between the servers without no issues, because I have created all the routing between these two segments, and they're able to communicate each other without any issues, right? So to write the firewall policies, I'll go back to the NSX Manager GUI, and I will go to the security tabs. So in the security tabs, I have different options, right? The one is for the east-west security, where I can see the distributed firewall, and I have a north-south security where I have a gateway firewall, right? For east-west traffic, that is between a host 1 to a host 2 inside an NSX fabric, you basically write a distributed firewall, because those are east-west traffics, right? So I go here inside the distributed firewall. The one thing that we need to take care here is basically selecting the category, right? So the category works in order. For an example, if you have a rule in the ETH1, that will get priority if you have, let's say, same rule in application, right? So for an example, you have server 1 and server 2, and I say, okay, server 1 to server 2, the port 80, it should be dropped in Ethernet policy. But I say, okay, in application policy, I go and write, from server 1 to server 2, the port number 80 should be allowed, right? But it will not get the precedence. The first policy that is written in Ethernet 1 will be applied, right? So the Ethernet is basically for the MAC addresses, right? So it's basically MAC-to-MAC communication, which will be applied here. The application will be basically the port number that you mentioned, or the application that you're going to use, right? And you also have an emergency rule, you also have an infrastructure rule, and an environment rule, right? So environment rule is like you have dev, and then prod environment, and you need to basically block the traffic, then you use environments. But you can see all the rules here, and it will be uh, uh, going in a top-down approach, right? So the first rule will get the priority. As you can see, the Ethernet category comes first, and then the other categories, whatever you written, will be followed. So in this category, you can see that if I go in an application category and basically write a policy, right? I just click add policies and edit policies and add a rule, and in the rule I say, okay, this is my source. So I can mention the source as I told you, I have created the groups, and the groups I will call inside the policies, right? Inside the firewall policy. So I just mentioned, let's say, my DB, and I applied it, and destination will be web, and I apply it, and I say that, okay, for this you just drop this traffic, right? So I have an option to apply this for the whole distributed firewall policies, or I can just mention that, okay, this just apply this for these groups, right? But let's keep it distributed firewall for this example, and I have to publish this rule, right? So I just publish this rule, but you can see that the ping is not stopped, right? It's still able to communicate without no issue, right? Now, why that is the case? Because if you go back and see the Ethernet policy, there's a default rule here saying that I have allowed any write. So the moment I have allowed any in an Ethernet policy, it gets priority because it comes first in an order of category rather than the application policy, right? So if I want to block this, either I can just say here that, okay, let's drop any traffic, or if I want to basically specify it like, let's say on this rule, I want to basically mention that from my source, that is DB to web, just drop the traffic, right? I can add a service also. Let's say drop everything. So anyway, I simply will be drop, and I will just publish this. And the moment I publish this, and once it becomes success, you can see that there's a drop in the traffic, right? So that is how basically you write an NSX distributed logical firewall policies. It's always in this order. So if you want, let's say, a MAC address to MAC address communication to be blocked, then basically you come here and write that rule. Or if you want an application, then you can write in the application a category also, right? So all the rules that you write will show here, and the first hit will get the priority, right? It will not continuously go, like a top-down approach. If the first policy is a hit, it will just take that and then stop here, right? So that's how basically you do a distributed firewalling in NSX.